And some of the alternatives that we can look at in Australia are decriminalising drugs as they do in Portugal, which I think is a fantastic system. So what they do in Portugal is it's still technically illegal to get caught with drugs on you, but if you do get caught, rather than ending up with being dealt with by police and lawyers and ending up in jail, you go to a tribunal that is actually concerned with the welfare of the drug user. And if they take a look at what's going on with your life and they see it's all falling to pieces and that you're becoming an addict, they'll refer you off to rehab. And if they take a look at you and it turns out you're actually fine and you're just a very occasional recreational user, they'll let you go. So it's a much more productive way of dealing with people. And the thing I really love about that system is that I'm a parent now, and I actually love it from the perspective of as a parent, because I feel like if my kid one day did get in trouble with drugs, if we had the Portuguese system here, quite frankly, I'd feel confident dobbing my kids in to the police. I'd feel confident that that would actually help them and they'd go through a process which was at least had a chance of getting them better. Whereas at the moment, with the way things are in Australia, parents are in opposition to the police. The parents can't seek the help of the police if their kid's in trouble with drugs, because it's quite clear it'll only make the kid's life worse.
Since the decriminalisation of drugs in Portugal, the country has seen a reduction in drug use, deaths related to drug use, and the prevalence of AIDS. This system has had such an overwhelming response that both Portugal's political parties are in support.
Yeah, well, it's really interesting what's been happening in Portugal, because we actually get to see how these policies work in practice. So it's been more than 10 years since they decriminalised all drug use. And there have been some serious studies done to see what's happened. And there has been a slight increase in adults taking illicit drugs, a really little increase. But really pleasingly, there's been a decrease in the number of teenagers taking illicit drugs. Been a decrease in deaths from drug overdoses, and there's been a decrease in the number of injecting drug users who are being diagnosed with AIDS. So that's a fantastic result. And in fact, it's so positive that now both sides of politics in Portugal are in favour of this program. It's not something that's partisan, and the Conservatives are in favour of it as well.
The Australian Federal Police seized almost 14 tonnes of drugs and ingredients between 2011 and 2012. Experts have suggested that drugs should be sold in pharmacies under the control of a government agency. Ms. Pryor discussed the idea behind the proposal along with other benefits associated with a controlled drug supply.
The idea is, and it's something that's up for debate, is that actually going ahead and legalising pot and ecstasy and maybe selling them through pharmacies as a way of, well, doing a couple of things. First of all, it means that people buying those drugs actually know what they're getting, which is especially a problem with ecstasy, because sometimes some of the deaths related to ecstasy have actually been because the tablets were adulterated with really bad chemicals, like something called PMA. So you get certainty about what is in the drugs. You also stop criminals from profiting from selling the drugs, which is a great effect. And another great effect is that you actually, for people who are interested in taking pot or ecstasy, you actually make sure they're not in contact with drug dealers who are going to sell them harder drugs as well. So you're not in that situation where you're buying ecstasy off someone who then says one week, oh, I don't have any ecstasy, but do you want some cocaine, or do you want some heroin, or do you want some ice? So I think that it has serious merit, and we need to start talking about it.
Ms. Pryor said that Australia's current policy is lazy and expensive. She believes that the current political resistance to decriminalise drugs is a front, as politicians fear that they will be seen as a drugs advocate.
We think of tough on drugs policies as meaning drug policies that have, big criminal sanctions and jail time for users. We think of that as being tough on drugs. But I would like to say that's not tough at all. It's like the laziest, most expensive thing politicians can do, jacking up sentences for drug possession. So I don't think it's tough on drugs. And I do think it is completely political. As people involved in this report have said, if you speak to politicians privately, they'll say, yes, we know the war on drugs isn't working, but they're too scared to say it publicly because they're scared that it'll make them look like they are saying drugs are okay, or that they're out of touch with mainstream society. So if we want things to change, I really reckon that all of us as just members of the public and the community. We have to make that shift before politicians will make the shift.
While current legislation has helped take drugs off the street and rehabilitate users, Ms Pryor said that this is not the most effective policy and Australia needs to join with global leaders on decriminalisation, such as Portugal.
There's all kinds of justifications. Like, for example, one is that we actually but you could say that we already do have a fairly balanced policy, certainly compared to lots of places in the world, because we do combine policing with harm minimisation programs. We already have needle exchanges. Obviously, the police do seize quite a large quantity of drugs, so obviously that must have some effect. So there are some good things about the current policy, but I really believe that Australia shouldn't just be doing okay with this stuff. I think we're a really smart, educated country. We're a well-off country, and we should be aiming to be the best in the world.